The Trans-Pacific Partnership trade deal still has to be signed by all 12 countries, but early reaction is all about jobs gained and lost.
This is a time when we are losing so many good manufacturing jobs. This is a significant hit, and there was no reason for this at all.
Greater value means more money for Canada's seafood exporters and more opportunity to keep jobs at home and to invest back into our companies to grow them.
The country is nervous about the economic landscape, with retail giants closing registers for good and plunging oil prices resulting in at least 35,000 job cuts in the West.
Everybody's uncertain, and it's lasted a lot longer. I haven't been unemployed this long in the past. The last job I applied for had 115 applicants that I know of. So I've heard up to 800 resumes for one job.
And with universities and colleges churning out more graduates, the unemployment rate for young Canadians is nearly double the national average.
They're upset. It's frustrating for them, I'm sure, at some point. They've put 4 years into university. They're hoping to graduate with that job in hand, and some of them don't.
The federal parties are all promising to boost the economy and create jobs, putting the livelihoods of Canadians at the centre of the election campaign. Our three guests today are close to the issue of jobs in Canada. Dan Kelly is the president and CEO of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. And in Ottawa, Warren Everson is the Senior VP of Policy at the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. And Bill Art is with the Canadian Federation of Students. And thank you all for joining us to talk more about this. And Dan Kelly, let me begin with you. What are you hearing from the parties that resonates with independent business?
You know, one of the big things that we've seen in this election is a commitment from all parties to reduce the small business corporate tax rate. And that's a surprise to have all four major national parties agreeing to reduce the rate from 11 to 9% over the next 4 years.
Which is a big deal.
It is. And in fact, the NDP has suggested that even be hastened to reduce it over 2 years. So that's a nice consensus among the political parties.
Warren, what are you hearing that you like?
So it's been a really interesting election campaign, rather less of the personal attacks that we see and much more focus on the economy and taxes, trade, technology, training. I like something in everybody's platform, as a matter of fact.
Which is interesting, Bill, and and I'm interested to get your opinion as well, because as we were just saying in the item that we ran, that the unemployment rate for youth, particularly graduates, can be nearly double the national average. What are you hearing that would resonate with, I guess the Canadian Federation of Students, but with people that you talk to?
Absolutely. I think that young people are incredibly excited this time around, especially to hear so much conversation around youth unemployment, specifically and employment strategies for most major parties. Certainly, we've heard a very interesting plan from the Liberal Party. They've promised $1.3 billion over the next 4 years, creating 40,000 jobs each year, just over 100,000 jobs. We've also heard a lot of really great conversation from the New Democratic Party, specifically talking about regulating unpaid internships and providing safe working conditions for students. And so certainly young people are more concerned than ever, graduating with some of the highest levels of student debt in Canadian history. They're very nervous about what kind of job market they're going into, and they're simply looking to be afforded the same opportunities as previous generations. And so conversations around a national strategy for youth employment that includes real, secure, and stable job opportunities for young people is incredibly important this election.
Yeah, certainly, with jobs at the forefront. And I'll go around the horn on this as well, but when we talk about different forms of, either student or graduate employment, apprenticeship programs, co-ops, there's been a lot of discussion prior to, but not necessarily on the campaign trail, of unpaid internships. Let me begin with you, Dan.
Yeah, I think unpaid
Absolutely.
internships are a difficult thing. We have interns at CFIB. We pay them as well, but it is a challenging thing, because if somebody's looking at that first foot in the door of the labor force, if you put too high a price on the head of that young person, they're not going to get the job. And we've seen provinces especially jacking up minimum wages. In fact, that's been a debate now at the federal level as well. That does make it more challenging. Some parties are also promising to increase payroll taxes, Canada Pension Plan premiums, EI premiums. That also is troubling in terms of getting young people that first job. And so we need to make sure that all of the parties' platforms make sense. Some have committed to things like apprenticeship job tax credits, which we like. We also like in the Liberal platform, there's a proposal to lower EI premiums for young people between 18 and 24. So there's a grab bag of policies out there, some good, some pretty troubling.
So, and Bill, you were just about to jump in on that, so let me go back to you on this. What do you think?
Well, I think it's incredibly important that federal parties and leaders are actually talking about a bold vision for Canada's youth that includes the eradication of unpaid internships. I think that more than ever, young people are finding themselves in a position where they're entering a very precarious job market, and they're expected to bring with them a lot of experience. You know, business isn't investing in actually providing skills and training on the job for young people in the way that it was for previous generations. So if you're applying for a job today and you're expected to have, 2+ years of job experience is the only route for that, for you to work an unpaid internship, I think that it's incredibly important that we hear more from all of the leaders about how they're going to ensure that young people aren't being exploited in the workplace and being forced to work for free.
And let me get you to weigh in on this, Warren, as far as what you hear from your membership of the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, so a big, huge preoccupation on getting that young cohort out of universities and colleges and into the right job as quickly as possible. People are investing fairly heavily in this thing, and there's been some revolutionary changes. 5 years ago, we weren't hearing about co-ops and apprenticeships the way we are today. It's really one of the most maddening things in public policy that we should have an enormous investment in education and then have this persistent unemployment among graduates for, I think the average is 16 months after they graduate before they get final employment. So I'm really glad to see that all the political parties have focused on this issue and they all come up with different suggestions. It can't help but work, and business is much more invested in it now than they ever were before.
Is there something, Dan, that you would like to hear that you're not hearing? I mean, I think there's been agreement of, everybody here this morning that there are different, that they're basically happy that everybody's talking about youth employment and job creation. But is there something that you'd like to hear that you have not?
I think that they've covered off most of the major public policy areas. A bit more focus on red tape reduction, which for the job market is incredibly important. That obviously is one that we'd like to see more heavily focused in the platforms of the parties.
Give me an example of red tape.
Well, there's all sorts of rules and regulations. For example, just a couple of years ago, the government created some new anti-spam regulations, which sound great, but they've caused every single email a business sends out to be in some way regulated and new processes having to be put in place. We'd love to see some scaling back of some of those rules and regulations as an example.
Belen, is there something you'd like to hear? I mean, I know you were saying, eradicate unpaid internships, of course, but is there something else that you'd like to hear?
I think that what we're missing right now is we're seeing a lot of investment, which is fantastic. We're seeing some policy changes, but we're really missing a broad and bold national vision. We've yet to hear a leader actually talk about what their vision is going to look like for young people in Canada today. A bold vision around investing in our youth, investing in the next generation of Canadians. And so I think that we need to see an actual national strategy on youth employment that's going to include business, that's going to include unions, that's also going to include government. And seeing a leader actually take force in that way, I think is going to provide students a reason to go ahead and cast their ballot for them on October 19th.
National strategy. Okay, and I'll wind things up with you, Warren, for a final word on maybe what you're not hearing or what you'd like to hear.
I'm kind of inclined to steal Belan's priorities there. I like them pretty well, but I guess the one that I would throw on the table is tourism. Canada used to be one of the world's leading tourism nations, and we've been slipping badly the last 10, 15 years. Mostly because of policies that we ourselves designed. And I'm not hearing from any party leader any really ambitious idea on how they're going to turn that around. And this just seems like a no-brainer to us. It's a simple investment in marketing and something to bring our aviation costs down. And the return to the federal government is in the billions and billions of dollars. So that's a very curious thing that we haven't seen more on that. We're a little bit disappointed about that.
Okay, well, certainly I appreciate the input from all of you this morning. Thank you so much.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you.